Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. Trust is a funny thing. You build it brick by brick, thinking it will stand the test of time. You assume that because you give someone your loyalty, they'll do the same. That was my first mistake. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. My name is Logan Williams. I've lived in this town my whole life. It's the kind of place where you nod at your neighbors, where the same families have owned businesses for generations. I manage a construction crew, building homes from the ground up. Real, solid work. The kind that stays standing when storms roll in. My marriage? I thought it was just as solid. But things don't crumble overnight. They crack slowly. And by the time you notice, the foundation is already gone. Life in a small town Samantha and I had been married for 5 years. When we first met, she loved the small town life. At least, that's what she claimed. She worked part-time as a real estate agent, selling houses to families looking for their version of the American dream. But lately, she seemed bored. She started dressing up more, even on days when she wasn't showing houses. Said it made her feel professional. I didn't think much of it first. Everyone likes to look good. Then came the late nights. She'd text me, always with a different excuse. I have a last-minute showing. Shouldn't be long. Meeting a client for drinks, networking, you know how it is. Melanie and I are grabbing dinner. Don't wait up. I trusted her, so I brush it off. The family ties that bind family is complicated. Amelia, my half-sister, and I didn't grow up together. We had the same mom, different dads. She lived a few towns over for most of her life, but we reconnected as adults. She married Derek, a personal trainer, all charm and confidence. The kind of guy who always knew exactly what to say. We weren't close, but we saw each other often, barbecues, birthdays, small get-togethers. It was Amelia who first noticed something was off. She pulled me aside one afternoon, standing by the grill, while Derek and Samantha chatted a few feet away. "Logan," she said quietly, her eyes sharp. "Have you noticed how much Samantha texts Derek?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She glanced toward them, lowering her voice. "I've seen it. Late-night messages. The way she laughs at his jokes a little too hard. You really don't think that's weird?" I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "Come on, Amelia. They're just friendly." Her expression didn't change. "Just pay attention." I didn't like what she was suggesting. It felt ridiculous. Samantha was my wife. Derek was her friend, my brother-in-law. There was nothing to worry about, right? The cracks began to show a few weeks later. I started noticing small things. Samantha was on her phone more often, tilting the screen away when I walked by. When I asked about it, she shrugged. Melanie sent me a funny meme. She'd say, "Or work stuff, nothing exciting." One evening, we were at Amelia's place for dinner. The four of us sat around the table, Derek telling some over-the-top story about a gym client, Samantha laughing at every word. She laughed too much, touched his arm too often. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. Her phone lit up on the table. A message from Derek. She grabbed it before I could read it, tucking it in her lap, her face carefully blank. That was the first moment I felt it. That deep, quiet sense that something was wrong, that I was missing something obvious. The warning I ignored later that night. Amelia texted me. "I wasn't imagining it, Logan. Something's going on." I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at Samantha as she slept beside me, her breathing steady. I wanted to believe in what we had. I wanted to believe in her. So I told myself Amelia was wrong, that this was nothing, that my marriage was still standing. But the truth? It had already started to fall. Loyalty is a powerful thing. It can blind you, keep you holding on long after you should have let go. Or it can sharpen your instincts, make you fight for the people who deserve it. Amelia had always been the second type. She saw the signs before I did, and she wasn't about to let them slide. Amelia's concern Derek's phone was never out of his sight. That wasn't new. He lived for attention, clients checking in, gym members needing advice, social media comments boosting his ego. But lately, it wasn't his clients blowing up his phone. Amelia noticed it first on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Derek had left his phone on the counter, stepping out to grab something from the garage. The screen lit up once. Then again. "Can't wait to see you later," a name Amelia recognized. "Samantha." Her breath slowed. She wasn't the type to snoop. She had never needed to. But something about this felt wrong. She tapped the message thread, scanning quickly. Missed you last night. You're the only one who understands me. Wish I could just be with you all the time. Her hands curled into fists. This wasn't casual texting. This was something else entirely. Footsteps behind her. Derek walked back in, stretching his arms. What are we doing for dinner? Amelia looked up, rage simmering under the surface. Why is Samantha texting you like this? Derek froze for half a second. Then, smooth as ever, he grabbed his phone, chuckling. Babe, come on. It's nothing. She's just venting. Venting? Amelia's voice was deadly quiet. Derek sighed, rubbing his jaw. She's not happy with Logan. She talks to me sometimes. I give her advice. That's it. Amelia stared at him. Advice? He held her gaze, not blinking. Yeah, there was something too easy about his answer. Too rehearsed. She didn't believe him. Not for a second. But she didn't push. Not yet. Because if she was right about this, she needed more than suspicions. Logan's unawareness, I was too busy to see it. Between long hours at the construction site, endless paperwork, and dealing with contractors who couldn't keep deadlines, I had barely been home. And when I was, Samantha was distant. Not cold. Not obviously cruel. Just disconnected. She asked fewer questions. Kept to herself. Like she was already halfway gone. One night, I got home late, my boots tracking dust across the kitchen floor. Samantha was at the table, scrolling her phone, a glass of wine next to her. She didn't even look up. Long day? She asked, voice flat. I nodded, dropping my tool belt onto the counter. Yeah. Silence stretched. Ich glänzte her. You okay? She gave me a small, distracted smile. Fine. Just tired. But her phone buzzed again. And this time, I noticed the way she turned it over, hiding the screen. I should have asked. I should have pressed harder. But instead, I told myself she was just in a mood. That things would go back to normal. That whatever was wrong wasn't what I was starting to fear. Melanie's quiet doubts. Melanie had known Samantha for years. They weren't best friends, but they were close enough that Melanie picked up on changes others missed. One afternoon, they were out shopping for home decor, something Samantha normally loved. But today, Samantha was distracted. Okay, what's up with you? Melanie finally asked, crossing her arms. You're acting weird. Samantha hesitated. Then she sighed dramatically, tucking her hair behind her ear. I don't know, she admitted. Lately, I feel like something's missing. Melanie raised an eyebrow. In your marriage? Samantha looked away. Logan's a good guy, but it's like, I don't know. We're stuck. I want more excitement, more passion. Melanie frowned. Is there someone else? Samantha smirked, swirling her iced coffee. Maybe. Melanie blinked. Samantha, I'm not doing anything, she said quickly, waving a hand. It's just fun. Flirty. A little thrill. Melanie didn't like that answer. She had seen this before. A woman standing at the edge of a cliff, convincing herself it was fine to lean forward. She didn't want to be in the middle of this. Didn't want to choose sides. But something about Samantha's tone, something about the way she was keeping details vague, made Melanie uneasy. Amelia's growing anxieties that night. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she had to do something. She met up with Melanie, pulling her into a booth at their usual diner. I think something's going on between Derek and Samantha, she said bluntly. Melanie nearly choked on her drink. Whoa, that's a big accusation. Amelia pulled out her phone, showing her the texts. This isn't normal. Melanie scanned the messages, her expression shifting. She told me there was someone, Melanie admitted slowly. But she didn't say who. Amelia clenched her fists. I don't know how deep this goes, but if it's what I think it is, Logan deserves to know. Melanie hesitated. Samantha is my friend. I don't want to throw her under the bus if this is just a phase. Amelia's voice was sharp. Melanie, this isn't a phase. This is my brother's life. Melanie looked away, exhaling. Okay, she finally said. Then we find out the truth. The moment that changed everything back at home, Samantha sat on the couch, her phone in her lap, debating. One message. That's all it would take. Wish you were here. Her finger hovered over the send button. Then, finally she pressed it. And across town, Derek's phone buzzed in Amelia's hands. Her stomach dropped. Because now, she had proof. and there was no turning back. Some betrayals you see coming. Others blindside you so completely, they change everything in an instant. That night, Amelia walked straight into the truth, and it shattered everything she thought she knew. Unplanned discovery, it was late, later than she was supposed to be home. Amelia had spent the weekend visiting relatives out of town, but the trip had been exhausting. Too many forced conversations, too much pretending she wasn't already on edge about Derek's recent behavior. So she came home early. The house was dark, except for a dim glow coming from the living room. At first, she assumed Derek had fallen asleep watching TV. Then she heard it. Muffled voices. A low chuckle. A soft gasp. She froze at the door, her heart hammering, her fingers tightening around her purse strap. Something was wrong. She stepped forward, slow and careful, until she was just outside the entrance to the living room. Peeking in, she saw them. Derek, Samantha, her husband and her brother's wife. Together. Derek's hand was on Samantha's thigh, his lips dangerously close to her neck. Samantha was leaning into him, whispering something only he was supposed to hear. A private moment. A moment that should have never existed in the first place. Amelia's stomach clenched. Her vision blurred at the edges, but her instincts took over. She reached for her phone, lifted it, and snapped a single, undeniable photo. The soft click made Samantha stiffen. Amelia ducked back just in time, pressing herself against the wall, her heart racing. "Did you hear something?" Samantha whispered. Derek let out a low chuckle. "Relax. We're fine." Amelia couldn't breathe. Her fingers gripped the phone, so hard it hurt. She needed to get out of there. Immediate reaction, she made it to her car before the rage truly hit. Sitting behind the wheel, she stared at the house. Her house, where her husband and her brother's wife were betraying them without a second thought. She tried to take a deep breath. Failed. Her pulse was wild, her mind racing through every possible reaction. She could storm in, scream at them, throw the evidence in their faces. But then what? They would lie, twist the story, try to turn it back on her. No, this needed to be handled right. Derek and Samantha thought they were safe, thought they were untouchable. They had no idea what was coming. Moral struggle. Amelia stared down at her phone, at the photo that made her sick to look at. She needed to tell Logan. But how? How do you tell your own brother that the woman he trusts is sleeping with your husband? How do you take a man's entire world and rip it apart? A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away, angry at herself for even wasting it on them. Logan deserved the truth, but not just words. He needed to see it. He needed to have no doubts, no room for excuses or manipulation. Amelia squared her shoulders. She had the proof. Now, it was time to end the lies for good. There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. Before, I trusted Samantha. Before, I believed in my marriage. Before, I thought my world was unshakable. But after tonight, everything would change. The painful revelation. Amelia called me early in the morning, her voice tight. "Meet me at the Oak Diner." Now, something in her tone put me on edge. No small talk, no explanation, just urgency. 20 minutes later, I walked into the diner and spotted her immediately. She was sitting in a booth near the window, a coffee cup untouched in front of her. She wasn't scrolling her phone, wasn't fidgeting. She was just staring at nothing. When I slid in the seat across from her, she finally looked up. And that was when I knew this wasn't just a bad morning. This was something much worse. "Amelia," I said carefully, "what's going on?" She exhaled shakily, then reached for her phone. "I need you to see this first," she said. She turned the screen toward me. I looked, and everything inside me went still. Samantha, Derek, together. The date, the time, the undeniable proof of what Amelia had walked in on last night. I felt my chest tighten, my pulse slowing to something cold and steady. I kept staring at the photo, at the image of my wife and my brother-in-law betraying us in my sister's own house. The coffee in my cup had gone cold, but I hadn't moved. Amelia's voice broke the silence. "I came home early," she whispered. "I wasn't supposed to." She swallowed hard. "I saw them, Logan. I saw everything." I nodded slowly. "Tell me everything." She did. She didn't hold back. The way Derek had his hands on Samantha, like she belonged to him. The way Samantha leaned into it like this was normal for them. The messages Amelia had found on Derek's phone. The months of late-night conversations. The proof that this wasn't some one-time mistake. This was deliberate, repeated, ongoing. I listened to all of it, my fingers pressing into the table so hard the wood creaked beneath my grip. Amelia was watching me carefully now. "Say something," she murmured. I took a deep breath. Then I let it out slowly. "Where are they now?" Alliance formed. Amelia blinked. "What? Where is Derek?" My voice came out calm. Too calm. She hesitated. "At the gym, probably. He left early this morning, acting like nothing happened." I nodded once. Then I stood. "Logan." Amelia grabbed my wrist, her grip tight. "I know what you're thinking." I looked down at her. "Do you?" "Yes," she snapped. "Because I'm thinking the same thing." There it was. The raw anger in her voice. The betrayal eating away at both of us from different angles. For the first time, we weren't just half-siblings who occasionally got together for family barbecues. We were two people who had been destroyed by the same two people. And we weren't about to let it slide. Amelia's jaw clenched. "Tell me what you want to do." I exhaled slowly, my hands flexing at my sides. "I want them to know," I said, voice low. "I want them to understand exactly what happens when you think you can lie and cheat and get away with it." Amelia smirked darkly. "Good, because I was hoping you'd say that." I eyed her. You're the level-headed one, Logan," she said. "I thought you'd try to talk me out of doing something drastic." I let out a short laugh. Not amused, just bitter. "Yeah, well, I guess we're past that point now." Amelia leaned forward. "So what's the plan?" I sat back down, calmer now. Because for the first time in hours, I wasn't drowning in rage. I was focused. "They think they're untouchable," I murmured. "They think we're too blind or too weak to do anything." Amelia nodded. "Then we proved them wrong." Melanie's involvement, there was one problem. Samantha's friend, Melanie. She wasn't just some random outsider. She had known Samantha for years. She would hear the rumors first, would see the storm coming before Samantha did. And I needed to know if she was on our side or theirs. Amelia agreed. "I'll talk to her," she said. "Feel her out. If she knows something and hasn't told you, that makes her an accomplice." I ran a hand over my jaw. "If she's been covering for Samantha, I want to know." Amelia's lips curled. "And if she hasn't, then she might be useful." She nodded, pushing back from the table. "Give me a day. I'll get answers." As she stood, I finally let myself glance back down at the photo. Samantha and Derek. A secret they thought no one would ever uncover. I had spent my whole life handling problems the right way. But this was about to get ugly. Betrayal can be forgiven. Disrespect cannot. Samantha and Derek didn't just cheat. They lied, schemed, and carried on like Amelia and I were too blind, too weak to do anything about it. They thought we would find out and crumble. Instead, we were about to show them what real consequences looked like. Recruiting Melanie Amelia, and I met Melanie at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town. Somewhere dimly lit, where no one would be listening. Melanie slid into the booth across from us, her face already tense. "Okay, you both sounded serious. What's going on?" Amelia didn't waste time. "Samantha is screwing my husband." The words landed like a grenade. Melanie's drink stopped halfway to her lips. She blinked, looking between us. "Wait, what?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. The screen showed the photo Amelia had taken, the proof. Melanie stared at it, her hand covering her mouth. Oh my God, her reaction wasn't fake. She had no idea. That was good. It meant she could be useful. "When did this happen?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Last night," Amelia said flatly. "But it's been going on for months." Melanie exhaled, leaning back. "Jesus." I knew Samantha was restless, but this? With Derek? She shook her head. "That's beyond messed up." I studied her. "Do you think she suspects we know?" Melanie hesitated, considering. "Not yet. She's been acting secretive, but she still talks to me like nothing's wrong." She looked at me. "Logan, I am so sorry. If I had known," I cut her off. "We're past that. Now, we focus on what happens next." Melanie frowned. "What do you mean?" I glanced at Amelia. She smirked. "We want them to feel something, Melanie. Fear, pain, regret." Melanie's eyes widened. "Wait, are we talking actual violence?" Amelia tilted her head. "What do you think they deserve?" Melanie shifted in her seat, clearly uneasy. I want them to pay, but I leaned forward. No one is talking about putting anyone in a hospital, but they don't get to walk away from this thinking they won. Melanie was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she exhaled. All right, she muttered. What's the plan? I had just the place. A construction site I managed. The framework of an unfinished building on the far side of town. No workers after hours. No security cameras. Just steel beams, concrete slabs, and a whole lot of places to make someone feel powerless. They'll be vulnerable there, I said. Trapped. No one to help them. Amelia grinned. Good. I want them to feel cornered. Melanie still looked hesitant. And what exactly are we going to do to them? I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure yet. Make them beg? Humiliate them? Hurt them just enough that they never forget what they did. Amelia spoke first. We let them feel helpless. Let them know exactly what it's like to have no control. She met my gaze. I nodded. That was exactly what I wanted too. Final preparations, the next step was getting them to the site. Melanie handled Samantha. She sent her a casual message. Hey, got a lead on a huge sale. Guy wants to see the place tonight, after hours. Meet me there at 9? Samantha took the bait immediately. Ugh, long day, but fine. A big sale will be nice. Amelia handled Derek. She waited until he got home from the gym, then walked up behind him as he checked his phone. You free later? She asked, voice light. I need to talk to you about something private. Derek smirked, completely oblivious. Yeah, of course, babe. Where? Construction site Logan's working on, she said smoothly. No one will be around. Derek grinned. Kinda hot. Amelia forced herself to smile back. Yeah, isn't it? A storm brewing by the time 8:45 rolled around. I was already at the site, pacing the unfinished floors, imagining what was about to happen. Amelia arrived first, wearing dark jeans and a hoodie, her eyes blazing. Melanie pulled up next, looking nervous but committed. I cracked my knuckles. Let's make sure they never forget this night, I said. Amelia smiled. Melanie swallowed hard. The air was thick with something dangerous, something that couldn't be undone. And then, headlights appeared in the distance. They were here. Betrayal is only powerful when it stays hidden. But tonight, we were dragging it into the light. Tonight, Samantha and Derek would understand what it felt like to be completely powerless. And I wasn't going to let them walk away unchanged. Night at the construction site, the site was silent. No workers. No passing cars. Just the unfinished skeleton of a building, half-framed in dark, towering under the night sky. Amelia and I waited near the center of the site, hidden in the shadows. Melanie stood near the entrance, phone in hand, her expression unreadable. Then, the sound of tires crunching over gravel. Headlights flashed once before shutting off. Samantha stepped out first, her heels clicking against the dirt, annoyed and impatient. Melanie? She called, frowning as she looked around. Where are you? Before she could take another step, a second car pulled in behind hers. Derek. He parked, got out, then immediately spotted her. His face froze. What are you doing here? Samantha looked equally confused. Melanie told me to meet her. Derek hesitated. Amelia told me. That was when the lights cut out. The entire site plunged into darkness. For a beat, all I could hear was their breathing. And then Amelia and I stepped forward. We emerged from the shadows, walking slowly. No words at first. Just our silhouettes taking shape in the dim moonlight. Samantha and Derek went still. They weren't stupid. They knew. Violent confrontation, Logan. Samantha's voice was high, nervous. What? I cut her off. You thought I wouldn't find out? I said, my voice deadly calm. Derek stepped back. Amelia, babe, listen, slap. Amelia's hand connected hard across his face, the sharp crack echoing in the open space. Derek stumbled, genuine shock in his eyes. You lying, pathetic bastard, Amelia hissed. She reached into her coat and pulled out a crowbar. Samantha gasped. Whoa, okay, let's all calm down. I turned on her so fast she flinched. Calm down? I repeated. I shoved her back against a concrete pillar, my arm pressing against her collarbone. You sure as hell weren't telling me to calm down when you were sneaking around behind my back. She trembled. Logan, please don't, I growled. Derek tried to step forward, but Amelia swung the crowbar, stopping him cold. Move and I break your damn kneecap, she said, voice deadly. For the first time ever, Derek looked afraid of her. Good. They needed to be afraid. Melanie's role near the entrance. Melanie lifted her phone. She wasn't yelling, wasn't getting involved. Just recording. Every plea. Every tremor in their voices. Every pathetic excuse they tried to choke out. Derek looked over, realizing what she was doing. Melanie, come on, put that down, he said, voice shaking. You don't want to do this. She didn't respond. Just kept filming. Samantha turned back to me. Logan, you're scaring me. I leaned in, my voice low. Good. She shuddered. I let the silence stretch between us. Let her feel the weight of what she had done. Then, finally, I let out a slow breath. You're both leaving here in one piece, I said. But this isn't over. Samantha's eyes darted to the phone in Melanie's hands. She realized, too late, that we were about to ruin them completely. And they couldn't stop it. Some people only understand consequences when they feel them firsthand. Tonight, Samantha and Derek would learn what it meant to be trapped with no way out. Tonight, we weren't just confronting them. We were breaking them. Physical intimidation. Amelia didn't hesitate. She lifted the crowbar with both hands and swung hard, but not at Derek. Clang. The metal struck the concrete pillar inches from his head, sending a spray of dust and shards flying. Derek flinched so hard he stumbled back, hands raised in surrender. Jesus, Amelia. What the hell? She stepped forward, eyes burning. What's wrong, Derek? She taunted. Thought you liked sneaking around? Thought you liked playing games? He was visibly shaking now, his usual cocky grin nowhere to be seen. Good. Let him be scared. Let him feel powerless for once. On the other side of the site, Samantha let out a choked breath. Logan, please. I grabbed her wrist before she could step away, holding just tight enough to make her panic. She winced. You're hurting me. I didn't care. I ripped her phone from her hand, lifted it high, and slammed it against the ground. The screen shattered instantly. Then, for good measure, I crushed it under my boot, grinding the pieces into the dirt. Samantha gasped in horror, like the phone was her lifeline. You want mercy? I asked, my voice low, dangerous. She nodded rapidly. Logan, it was just a fling. I leaned in close. It was a choice, I corrected. Every single time, it was a choice. And now you live with it. She sagged against the pillar, eyes darting between me and Amelia. They finally understood. Emotional breakdown, panic hit fast. Derek turned to Samantha, desperate to save himself. This was all you, he spat, pointing a shaking finger. You were the one who kept texting. You were the one who said Logan was boring. Samantha's head snapped toward him. Oh, so it's my fault now? She shrieked. Like you weren't begging for it? Every time I came over? You said you were leaving him. Derek fired back. Yeah? Well, you were never worth leaving him for. That did it. Derek lunged at her, grabbing her by the arms, but Amelia was faster. She shoved him so hard, he hit the ground with a grunt. Touch her again, and I'll break something you actually care about, she snarled. Derek looked up at her, wide-eyed, rubbing his shoulder. His bravado was completely gone. He wasn't the confident, smooth-talking trainer anymore. He was just a pathetic coward, caught in his own lies. Samantha turned back to me, her face streaked with sweat and dust. Logan, she whispered. We can fix this, I laughed. Actually laughed. She flinched. You don't get it, do you? I said, shaking my head. There is no we anymore. I stepped forward, towering over her. You will never text me again, I said slowly. Never call me. Never show your face near me, near my family, near anything I care about. She swallowed hard, nodding rapidly. I won't, I swear. I turned toward Derek, who was still on the ground, shaking his head in disbelief. Same goes for you, I told him. Because next time? I nodded toward Amelia's tight grip on the crowbar. We won't be so merciful. The culmination, the silence, stretched. Only their ragged breathing filled the air. Then, Amelia took a slow, deliberate step toward Derek, gripping the crowbar like she was ready to end this once and for all. She lifted it slightly, just enough to let the fear settle deep. Derek's hands flew up. Wait, Amelia, don't. Her eyes flickered with something dangerous. Her fingers tightened around the handle. But just before she could swing, I placed a hand on her shoulder. Enough, I said firmly. She froze. Her breathing was uneven, furious. For a second, I thought she might ignore me. Then, finally, she exhaled sharply and lowered the crowbar. Derek let out a shaky breath, collapsing against the dirt. Samantha was too scared to move. We had broken them. Completely. And that was enough. Final words, I leaned down, my voice dangerously calm. This isn't over, I promised. But tonight, you walk away. They didn't argue. Didn't fight back. They just nodded numbly. Because now, they knew better. Betrayal has a way of eating people alive. Samantha and Derek thought they were untouchable, that they could sneak around, lie, and play with other people's lives without consequences. But that night at the construction site, that was their reckoning. And it wasn't over yet. Immediate fallout, Samantha stumbled as she ran, her heels catching on the uneven ground, her breath coming out in short, panicked gasps. Derek was limping behind her, one hand clutching his bruised ribs, his face twisted in pain. Neither of them said a word. There was nothing left to say. They reached their cars in a daze, eyes darting back at the site, as if they expected Amelia and me to come storming after them again. Samantha fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so bad she dropped them twice before finally getting the door open. Derek didn't even make it to his car at first. He just stood there, staring at the ground, his shoulders hunched. You said this wouldn't get messy. Samantha hissed at him, voice raw. Derek's jaw tightened. Shut up, Samantha. She let out a bitter laugh. We're ruined. You were the one who wouldn't let it go, Derek shot back. But he didn't finish. Because for the first time, they both realized the truth. It didn't matter who started it. It was over now, and they lost. Rumors began to spread by morning. The whispers had already started. Close acquaintances, mutual friends, people who noticed the bruises Samantha tried to hide with makeup, they all began to talk. Did you hear what happened last night? Samantha showed up looking like she had been in a fight. Someone said Logan and Amelia caught them together. Derek's avoiding the gym. What do you think that means? They tried to control the damage. Derek disappeared from his usual spots, dodging texts and skipping work. Samantha tried to smile through the gossip, but the cracks in her confidence were blatantly obvious. Everywhere she turned, people were looking at her differently. Not with admiration, not with envy, but with pity, and she couldn't stand it. Legally and financially destitute on the drive home, Amelia sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, still buzzing with adrenaline. You should have let me break something, she muttered. I smirked. We broke everything that mattered. She looked over at me, her expression shifting. You're filing for divorce, right? I nodded once. Already set up. She gets nothing. Amelia grinned darkly. Good. That lying witch deserves to be homeless. Melanie, sitting in the back seat, hesitated. Is she actually homeless, though? I exhaled. Close enough. The prenup locks her out of everything. House, finances, assets. She'll be on her own, completely. Melanie shook her head. She's going to spiral. Not my problem, I said flatly. And it wasn't. Samantha made her choices. Now, she'd live with them. Meanwhile, Derek? He was in hiding. His gym saw a sudden staff change. He had resigned, citing personal reasons. Word was, he left town altogether, moving in with some distant relatives. Coward. Melanie's comfort in the days that followed. Something unexpected happened. Late nights turned into long conversations. Long conversations turned into something else entirely. Melanie had been there through everything. The anger, the betrayal, the fallout. She never took sides blindly, never enabled lies. She was real. One night, we sat on her porch, sipping whiskey, the air heavy with unsaid things. You're handling this better than I expected, she murmured. I looked at her. I thought I'd lose my mind. I thought I'd want revenge forever. She raised an eyebrow. And now? I exhaled. Now I just want to move on. A small smile played on her lips. Then maybe you already have. And for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.